What's going on, guys? It's the Rear Naked Recap, UFC Vegas 27. A little bit different location. Decided to switch things up this weekend. It's a long weekend in Canada. It's called like May 2-4 long weekend. No idea if this is a holiday anywhere else, but it's like an extended long weekend. So me and the girlfriend decided to take a little road trip, go see my grandparents. As a result, kind of away from the regular studio, but all the same, had to get a recap out. Great fights last night. So let's jump into things right off the hop. Damir Ishmagulov, he's been the biggest favorite on the card. Everybody kind of expects him to win, and with Alves coming in, he's the wild card, because normally when you get a guy that's a 6-1 favorite, the guy he's fighting is an absolute putz. But with Alves, he was already the Titan FC champion. He had won a Dana White's Contender Series. He was kind of seen, 30-year-old, well-developed prospect already, lots of fights under his record. At least an interesting guy coming into the UFC. He would be the favorite over half of the roster. Unfortunately, they draw him Damir Ishmagulov. Because of his last fight, he misses weight by so much. They're like, we're not going to do this guy any favors. They give him Ishmagulov, and it's just a tough outing. But you know what? The guy could look good for himself. As far as having Ishmagulov on the top ticket, he's the biggest favorite on the card. Again, he's somebody that I haven't spoken to anybody that was betting against him. It's like he should be a safe play. But even from the first round, Alves is aggressive. He tries to snare him up in the guillotine choke. Had me going a little bit with the sweats there. Ishmagulov escapes, takes the first round. Second round, here was another conundrum about the fight, is that Alves has got 9 pro losses and has been finished in all 9 pro losses, whereas Ishmagulov, most definitely more of a decision guy. And you see it there. Like, could he have taken out Alves? Were some of those shots hurting Alves? Yeah, certainly. But he more just relies on the jab. He just jabs you apart. It almost reminds you of like Josh Koscheck versus George St. Pierre. Koscheck's busted up. His eyes swollen shut. It's like it almost seems like he's ready to go at any time, but George just plays the methodical game, stays at range, and just keeps feeding him the jab. Ishmagulov has a long, educated jab. It seems to pack a decent amount of punch. It also just adds up. But it's not that kill shot. It's not that shot that's going to take you out of there. And there was the other thing that I was impressed with Alves, is that I really did expect this guy to kind of gas after the second round. He's everything he does is explosive. You even saw that like sweet little scramble in the second round where he explodes out. Like, this guy is very athletic. He's talented. He's a guy that tried to make 145 pounds, botched the weight cut by like 11 pounds. He is a big guy. He's fairly muscular. And yeah, the fact that he's been finished in all 9 of his pro losses is a pretty good indication that the longer these fights go, his game plan kind of falls off it. In that third round, man, he knows he's down 2-0. He comes at it. He looked aggressive. He looked like his cardio was on point. And Ishmagulov kind of turned into a little bit of a Zabit Magomed-Sharapov. Looked great for the first 2 rounds. And all of a sudden, there's an impression that it's like, what if this is 5 rounds? What if this guy is the next, ends up headlining a fight night card, or ends up fighting a guy, a ranked contender in a 5-round fight? Like, can he go 5 rounds against Alves? He's the biggest favorite on the card. The first 2 rounds are, I wouldn't say a walk in the park, but competitive. But he's up 20 to 18 going into the third. He's up 2 rounds. And Alves brought it on strong, won that third round. Didn't matter. We got the decision victory out of it anyway, so we move forward. And again, when you look at Ishmagulov and his finishing abilities now, you give him a couple passes out there when it's like, Thiago Moises is hard to put away. And, he's defeated a couple good guys. But not finishing Alex Gorgie's a guy that he's 4 times better fighter than, and now not finishing Alves, who looked good, gave a good counsel. But again, a guy that had been finished in his previous 9 losses. Ishmagulov's not likely getting a whole lot of finishes moving forward. Then again, we'll talk about Carla Esparza later, someone who's not really known for finishes as well. If you get the right matchup, anything can happen. Moving on to the next fight, we had a kind of a late, got put together late. It was David Dvorak versus, I don't really know how to pronounce the name, Ronderos. Props to this guy for taking the fight on a day's notice. Props to the guy for, initially it was a weight miss, but it's like, he took it on a day's notice. What do you mean weight miss? So the UFC moves it to a catch weight so that he doesn't forfeit 20% of his purse. That's cool. With Dvorak, we knew that he was a good prospect anyways. A guy that looked really good on the Czech regional scene. He's already 2-0 coming into the UFC. Both wins by decision. Seemed like maybe he himself is a little more of a decision guy himself. But again, looked good in both of those decisions. Beat Bruno Silva, who's on an absolute tear, was also on this card, someone who we'll talk about a little bit later. And the win over Jordan Espinosa, it is what it is. But he's 2-0 in the UFC. Him versus Rolian Paiva is a great fight. Rolian Paiva is already established in the UFC as well. He's 25 years old. He's got some legit skills. He's defeated some good guys. He's fought some good guys. This is 2 prospects versus each other. We're going to see which one's the real deal, which one's going to take an advancement in his career. And Paiva pulls out and you get Ronderos steps in on short notice. But I'm shocked that they even gave us a betting line, and the betting line opened up. It was like minus 400 for Dvorak. Like, Dvorak went from fighting a very close, competitive, good fight to taking on a guy on a day's notice that just is going to have a lot of issues going against him. And mind you, he didn't look bad for the first 90 seconds of the fight, but you knew Dvorak was just, the leg kicks were going to start adding up. The shots were going to start adding up. This guy was surely going to start getting tired. And the second that the scramble ensues, Dvorak just takes the back, puts their choke in. I don't know how much credit you can give to Dvorak in that. Lots of credit. He did exactly what he was supposed to do. He had a short notice replacement, a guy that didn't look to be in his league. He's a 5-1 favorite come fight time. He was supposed to go out there and smoke through him in 2 minutes. And that's exactly what he did. I just don't know how much it raises his stock because he was supposed to do it and he did do it. It's a lose-lose situation. I beat this guy and if I don't look good beating this guy, woof. If I lose to this guy, ugh. But even if I do beat this guy, I mean, what do? Choke him out in 2 minutes, and people like Cody Garbrandt are still saying it's not a flawless victory. But it is a flawless victory. I just mean we were excited to see him tested with the Rolly Pavas of the world, see how he advances. But surely the UFC is going to give him a good name guy after this. I mean, this was not a planned booking. This is a short notice opportunity. And I could definitely see him factoring in against a lot of the top flyweights in the division moving forward. So, yeah, solid victory, definitely. Joshua Culibao, he's another favorite. He's a guy that most definitely did not get a flawless victory. My God, that fight with Shayilan was just way closer than it needed to be. I felt the entire time that Culibao would get the decision, but even seeing the judges score the first round for Shayilan, it's a good indication that if the judges just like this wrestling and this grappling as opposed to strikes, then that's what they're going to score. So come the third round, they show you the significant strikes numbers on the screen. And Culibao is 3 times the numbers in all 3 rounds. But of course, the judges have scored that first round against him because he's just getting his back pressed against the cage. He would get taken down, but he would immediately pop back up. Culibao, again, on the regional scene, he was known for good cardio. This guy that could go 3 rounds, no problem. He had fought into the 4th and 5th rounds, some championship rounds a few times. Cardio was good. Came to the UFC, and maybe he's overmatched. Certainly the last fight against Charles Jourdain, where the 3rd round was by far his worst. What are we getting at a Culibao? But I did expect to see a return to form for his cardio, at least in some form. And that's what we had. Shayilan in the first round was successful in holding him up against the cage, tripping him to the ground. Culibao stung him a few times, but you could definitely score the round just on that wrestling and control to Shayilan. And now we got Culibao down around. But in that second round, Shayilan already, I wouldn't say super fatigued. It's just he wasn't really pressing the action for the takedowns anymore. He wasn't pressing him into the cage. He was standing a lot more at distance, and he was just getting chewed away at with against Culibao. So now we got 1-1 going to the third, and it's the same thing. Kulibao's landing the strikes. You got Shayilan trying to take him down, trying to press him up against the cage. I'm very happy that the judges decided to award the damage. But again, Culibao was minus 345, he was a 3.5 to 1 favorite. I don't want to say it should have been a walk in the park, but a 20-year-old kid in Zhu Rong had just knocked out Shayilan last year. His chin didn't figure to be great. His wrestling, very, very basic. Not saying he's not a good wrestler, but in the UFC at this level, most guys are going to see those shots coming and stuff them out. And, Culibao got the win. That's something that he needed. He needed to advance his career, but not a good performance in the slightest bit. Not a guy that's going to get a bonus for something like that. Not a guy that's going to make a whole lot of fans for something like that, but did secure the victory. And for anybody that was betting him because he was a big favorite, at least he didn't ruin a ticket on you. Bruno Silva most definitely didn't ruin a ticket. Yeah, again, this all comes down to matchmaking. When they're giving him the best guys in the world, when they're giving him Tagir Ulanbekov, it's competitive. He's competitive with those guys. Guy can go out and give, world-class competition a tough fight. The David Dvorak fight, and wins the 2nd round. Going into the 3rd, it's 1-1. It's a close fight. He always gives guys close fights. Even the Tafa loss, Tafa was on the juice. So, again, I'm giving the guy a pass. I think Bruno Silva is super talented, but being in the room every day with guys like Henry Cejudo and the Pitbull brothers and just that entire cast of guys that are down in Arizona, they're making a lot of improvements. And Bruno does embody one of these guys just in the gym all the time. And you do see these improvements fight to fight. But again, the UFC just matches him up incredibly difficult. So his last time against JP Buys, he's a plus 115 underdog of the week. Everybody's on Bruno Silva for this fight. And this is feeling. It's coming out party. Guy's 0-3 in the UFC, but he's due for a win. And he goes out and he gets that win. And so then giving him Victor Rodriguez, it was okay, well, he's not due for a win anymore, but he's going to keep the train rolling. They're going to match him up soft. This guy, he's super well-rounded. There's nothing he can't do. The issues he's going to run into is that he's a good wrestler. He's a good striker. Cardio pretty good. Chin solid. But he's not going to be able to go out there and wrestle the best wrestlers. If he was to take on a strong powerhouse wrestler, the Ulanbekov type, they have success against him. If he takes on a strong striker that's going to stuff his shots, well, his strike is just not quite that good. But against a guy like Victor Rodriguez, coming out of Alaska FC, I would have had to really eat my words, by the way, if a blood, sweat, and beers veteran want to fight in the UFC, because I just really didn't see it happening. In Rodriguez's case, it's the first shot that landed, he seemed to stiffen up. And kudos to Bruno. It's a lot of guys would have been oh my God. and just bum rushed right away. But he was like, I'll give it another minute or so. And then second time he cracks me, she's like, Rodriguez should. Both shots landed hard. Bruno obviously cracks hard for this weight class. Like this is a division that doesn't have a whole lot of power punchers, and just seeing him knock out Baez his last time out, knock out Rodriguez here, he sits down a lot of his punches. He's an interesting fighter, and I think he's one of these guys that, regardless of if he'll ever crack the top 10 or top 5, which I have my reserves about, is that he'll be able to fight the guys in the top 5, top 10, give them rounds, give them competitive fights. I don't want to label him as a gatekeeper, but he's going to do an excellent job of keeping that gate if that's the direction they go. And he gets a $50,000 bonus out of this, which is kick-ass. Because as I mentioned on last week's show, he fights 3 times in the UFC. He makes 12 to show, loses all 3, doesn't collect a bonus. So he gets a 12, 12, and 12. He's 0-3 in the UFC. He's made $36,000. Yeah, maybe Reebok threw him a couple bucks. Maybe a sponsorship, give him a couple bucks. Not a whole lot of money. You know what I mean? Somebody in the same year could work a minimum wage job. But then that last fight against JP Baez goes out, gets the win. So now he gets a 12 and a 12, plus his contract, which was up. Renews it, gets a better deal out of it. He gets a $50,000 bonus. Man, talk about being 30, not having any money. The last year, I've lost 3 fights. I've made no money. Tough for sure. You get a bonus out of it, and you win. Great. And you come out, you win again. You get even more money. The contract bumps up because that's how it works in the UFC. You win your last fight, get a little more in your next fight, and he gets another bonus. So Bruno's going to be living the good life, and whatever he chooses to do with it, he's earned it. So props to him. Moving on, we got Court McGee versus Claudio Silva. This one went just about exactly how I expected it, and things don't always go the way you expect, believe you me. But at least with Claudio Silva, he's exactly the guy we thought he was in this fight, in his last fight, and every other fight. The problem is that he had won the first 6 fights of his UFC career. Outside of the Cole Williams fight, I got screwed on all those fights. So I'm always fading this guy. Why? The exact same thing you saw in the Court McGee fight. Why? The same shit you saw the last time in the James Krause fight. Why? The same thing you saw in the Danny Hot Chocolate Roberts fight. This guy is brutal, man. Brutal. There's an entire career of this. He's really good BJJ. And the entire game of his grappling revolves around him being on top. He has good jiu-jitsu when he's on top. Well, how are you going to get the fight to a position where you're on top if you can't wrestle? And against a very one-dimensional striker, he could take them down. Against anybody who's wrestled D1, D2, D3, junior college, NAIA, no, he's not taking those guys down. And Court McGee, a guy that can wrestle, certainly not known for his wrestling, no, you're not taking him down as well. And so now when you default to, okay, well, my only game is get on top of this guy and use jiu-jitsu, don't have the wrestling to get it there. What's the fallback play? Well, you got to be able to strike. He just can't strike. So then, okay, I can't strike. I can't wrestle. How am I going to get onto this guy? Well, you got to outlast him. He's got no cardio. How does this guy win fights? But I'll admit, winning on Court McGee, and I had Court McGee, if you watch the prop show, we had Court McGee by decision as well, plus 185. I think I'm just about at a break even on this guy because he screwed me the first 5 or 6 times. He's a weasel, man. He can weasel a victory need be, but the game's passing him by. He's 38 years old. He wasn't good to begin with. They gave him Court McGee, which is as winnable of a fight as he's going to get at this stage, and he was nowhere near. He did not win a single round against James Krause. He did not win a single round against Court McGee. He looked embarrassing in both of them. I thought he looked embarrassing in the Danny Roberts fight. I thought he's looked embarrassing in a lot of fights. But because he's got a win over Leon Edwards, people that wiki cap it, people that just check Tapology or Shirt really quick, they see that, they assume elite. Wins 5 or 6 straight fights to start off his UFC career. None of those guys are really cutting it in the UFC except Edwards, sorry. But yeah, all the same, he's a fraud. So now that I'm finally at a break even, I'm feeling good about it. But I'd love the UFC to give him one more fight because I'd love to fade him one more time. So sorry, Claudio Silva, just not my guy. Ben Rothwell versus Chris Barnett. Again, you hope that they hold on to Chris Barnett for one more fight too because you'd love to fade him. I'm not even trying to be mean. He's had a really fun career outside the UFC. Fought in Japan, fought Korea, Road FC, Ryzen, or not Ryzen, but a lot of these Road FCs. He's fought for Antonio Inoki's promotion out there. He's a 340-pound heavyweight who happens to be a smidget over 5'8", call it 5'9", and just it's a freak show fighter. And in Japan, they love that. Korea, they love that. You go over there, you're the big guy. You might fight a guy that's 0-0. In fact, his last fight prior to this fight with Rothwell, he went to Dubai. Well, he fought a guy that was 0-0, despite his lengthy resume and career in combat sports. Those are the kind of fights you can match Huggy Bear in, and they'll be fun. But UFC needs a heavyweight last minute. I'm sure it's his dream to fight in the UFC. He's been fighting professionally for over 10 years. Whose dream as a professional fighter isn't to fight in the UFC at some point? They call on a week's notice, you're going to pick up the phone. And I was pretty adamant, like, he's a 300-pound man, so taking a fight on short notice for him, he's still going to have to probably cut 35 pounds to make the heavyweight limit. Made the weight, looked okay on the scales, but the fight starts out, and like the tweet I sent out is like, there's a reason you only see 5'8" heavyweights at the barbecue and not in the UFC. It's like, he just looked grossly out of place. Rothwell is very slow at this stage. He's very plodding, and he's a top 15, maybe a fringe top 10 heavyweight. He's 39 years old. Things don't figure to be getting much better for him at this stage. Everyone keeps looking back at the Stefan Struve fight, and I guess the Tybura fight where he gets largely dominated. Really, ever since he came back from his positive drug test, the 2016 days are gone, and they look back against Chris Barnett. Like, Ben Rothwell looked as good as he ever has. He just marched him down. He kept throwing. He loves throwing that uppercut. Most guys see it coming. They evade out of the way, but Barnett's so short, he kept dipping his head forward. And the uppercut was landing. It was money. The overhand right was money. Backed him up with everything. Barnett would throw the Superman punches. He's an athletic guy, but it was all one and done. It's all one and done type stuff. His path to beating Ben Rothwell was not with his strike. Even though he's a striker, Taekwondo black belt, all of his wins for the most part, he was not going to win this fight standing by virtue of he didn't have 15 minutes of cardio. Call it short notice, call it a 300-pound man, call it he doesn't have good cardio even when he isn't at full camp, in good shape. But you're not knocking out Ben Rothwell. People don't knock out Ben Rothwell. He's absolutely has legendary cast iron chin. So if you're not going to knock him out, then you're going to have to fight him for 15 minutes. Barnett just wasn't going to be able to do that. So his little flim-flam Superman punch, one shot, one and done, try to get out of the way, it just was never going to be a winning game plan. He needed to get this thing to the ground and just lie on top, smother him, use the weight. Not pretty, but at least it would have been a path to victory. And taking down Ben Rothwell, good luck. That's a hell of a task too. So Ben looked fresh, man. Ben looked as good as he ever has. But again, it always comes down to matchmaking. You're going to look really good against guys that shouldn't be in there with you, and not so much against the other ones. As for Barnett, I don't know what you do with him, right? Do you book him against Justin Tafa, who we saw later on in the card, who ended up losing? Can he fight a one-dimensional striker and have a fun striking match? I was not impressed in the slightest bit. He's also a little bit older himself. I believe 34 years old. This was a cool, I lived out my dream. Beyond that, I don't know. But the UFC doesn't just, you did them a favor. They're not just going to give you one fight. They'll give him another one. They might give him a third one. But, I don't know. What does he fight? Parker Porter? I don't know. Tough go. But I'd be cool to see him again because, again, he's entertaining for as long as the fight lasts. Jumping to the main card, Jack Hermansson versus Edmund Shahbazian. Hermansson really did feel like value of the week. I mean, I know I talked to a number of people about that. It's why is it sitting at minus 140, minus 50 range? Isn't Shahbazian kind of weak with the takedown defense? Isn't Shahbazian's cardio a little weak? Well, it's just the Brunson fight. Well, it wasn't just the Brunson fight. It's a Darren Stewart fight, too. This guy gets out of the first round. Every single fight he's had that gets out of the very first round. Evan Shahbazian, not the same guy. Dude, he's 23 years old, so no doubt he's making improvements. No doubt he's getting better. No doubt that with the skill set he has already, he could be something. But at 23, they need to just put him back bottom of the ranks again, back at the bottom of the totem pole, work your way back up. It's like Mortal Kombat. You don't just lose to the guy and then hang there. You don't lose to the guy and then go up a level. You lose the guy, you go all the way back down. That's what Shahbazian needs to do. Because at 23, he's got skills, he's got it. But the biggest thing he's got is time. He's got time. He could fight mid-level guys for the next 5 years. And then at 28, start fighting top 10 guys like Jack Hermansson and Derek Brunson. Top 15 guys, top 5 guys. Right? 5 more years of development, working your way up the ranks. They didn't do that for him. The Brunson fight really did expose him. Again, get him out of the first round and then take him down and smother him. His cardio's not great. His takedown defense is not great. So this fight with Hermansson, again, I spoke to a lot of people who are on the same page. It's it's going to be the same thing, right? But the other guys I talked to with Shahbazian were like, you know what? His striking is good. And Jack Hermansson's striking is not good. And Shahbazian's probably going to pop him up, might be able to knock him out. We've seen him get knocked out before. I was of the team of you've seen him knock out before? Who? Jerry Cannonier? Okay. Thiago Santos? Okay. See anybody else knock him out? Because those guys you give a pass to, man, they're 2 of the biggest power punches the division's ever seen. Ever. So Shahbazian, he's tight and he's technical, but he really needs to get that first round knockout, or again, the same flaws that he's been having probably present themselves. And again, at 23, he's working on it. He could be making the improvements, but we can only, as a capper, you can only go with the knowledge that you know already. We know he gasses. It's an assumption that he shored that up. we got to go with what we know. So Hermansson starts to fight, and I'm feeling shitty about it. And Shahbazian's dancing around him. He's outlanding him big time. That right hand, and see, everything did look blocked. It looked like Jack was doing a good job of getting his hands up, keeping it tight. The problem with a 4-ounce MMA glove is it's not like boxing or kickboxing where a simple block is enough. The punches is getting through. He's getting dinged in the top of the head. It is starting to add up. He's starting to get flustered. He's getting reddened. He's not getting tired, but you can just tell from the body language that, now he shoots his first takedown. It's 10 feet away from Shahbazian. It almost looks like a desperation takedown, but there's no setup. There's nothing to it. He's 10 feet away from him. He just lunges in, and Shahbazian easily evades. I'm thinking, shit, didn't even try to set that one up right. Now he presses Shahbazian up the cage. He attempts takedown number 2, easily stuffed. Now we're in trouble. Jack needs to get this fight to the ground. He's not a striker. He's never been a striker. His path to victory was getting this fight to the ground. And whereas Brunson's a good wrestler and Brunson can just keep going back to wrestling, Jack's more of a grappler than a wrestler. Once the fight does hit the ground, he's better than Brunson. But getting the fight to the ground, he is not better than Brunson. And getting stuffed the first 2 attempts like that, I start to worry. Maybe kid's been working on his wrestling defense. If he keeps us up for another round, we're going to need to finish. We're going to be in big trouble. And then by the graces of the MMA lords, they Shahbazian'd him. The second round, it was the exact same thing that we were really hoping would happen. It would have been a huge, good live betting opportunity for Jack Hermansson, being that got his ass kicked in the first round. But in that second round, it's like then the takedown comes. Now you got Shahbazian down. Now he's not as explosive. He's a little more tired. Jack just grinded into him. Mind you, it was still a very close second round. I just felt that it was going to go the way of Jack Hermansson, especially the way the first one went. The judges in the Shayilan fight had really seemed to appreciate nothing being done with the takedown. So I got the impression, hoping anyways, that we had a 1-1 going into the third, and knowing in the third it would be Jack all day. Because, again, with Shahbazian, it doesn't get better. The first round's your best round. The second round is an okay round, which it was. The third round is not going to be a good third round. I was hoping Jack would get the finish just in case it would go to the scorecards. I didn't want to get screwed. But I also had some Jack by decision. I didn't even care about that. I cared about the parlays and the money line. I didn't care. I want to secure the victory over getting greedy and trying to hit a decision prop, getting screwed and losing everything. So I was just like, just get the finish. But he beat him up, and I thought the judges would do the right thing. And they did. Jack Hermansson gets the victory. Props to that. And then that's when things fell off. Because at this point, we've got Ishmagulov, Dvorak, Culibao, Bruno Silva, McGee, Ben Rothwell, Jack Hermansson. We're 7 straight. We're into the main card now. PRP's looking good. Everything's looking good. We've already hit the top bracket. Second bracket, we need Rob Font, but that's in the main event, so we'll have a good hedge opportunity. We get hedged on a PRP, like 120-1, guaranteed a 60-1 hit. Guarantee a 60-1 hit. Oh, this is going to go so good. Bill Algeo, he's the last one I'm dicey about because it's an even money fight. It's a close fight, but my boy Bill's going to pull it through. My boy Bill did not pull it through. You ever seen that episode of The Simpsons where they're like fighting over the pie? He's basically, well, if you walk into my range, and he just starts windmilling his arms. That was Bill Algeo. He looked like a human windmill. Like everything was just so clubbing and over the top. It didn't look like he put a whole lot of power into it. And this is my fault. I'll call it a bad read on my part. Is that looking at the Brendan Lucane fight on Contender Series, he gets taken down 3 times. He can't stuff a takedown. We know this, but I mean the volume, 140 significant strikes and good output. Loses the fight though, right? The Ricardo Lamas fight, he gets taken down 5 times, and dude, just the volume, the output, and loses the fight. This fight, Karloff fight, he gives up 3 takedowns. Again, so we know takedown defense is no good. We know Ramos would have a path there with the takedown, but holding Bill Algeo down, and neither of the previous 3 guys I just mentioned were able to do it. Holding Bill Algeo down, different problem. So I really expected Ricardo Ramos would take him down, Bill would get back up, and then Bill would get back onto pressuring him. What I really, and I should have known this, did the tape study, watched it, is like that windmill striking, there's nothing on it, like the power's not quite there. He could have hit Ramos with his best shot, and it didn't even phase Ramos in the slightest bit. And so Ramos did a really good job of dictating the range as well. Like a lot of the times Bill would move forward, his jabs were like everything out, like everything would come at you. And Ramos would just stay about a couple inches outside of it and then counter on him. He landed the better effective strike. First round, he lands the better effective striking. He takes him down. First round, most definitely his. Second round, he gets the takedowns. In my personal opinion, I know the judges disagreed because it was 2 30-27s. There wasn't enough done with the takedown. Bill got up. Bill started pressuring that second round. Bill's coming at him. He would throw these they were like half-hearted flying knees. He wasn't really committing to them, but the first one seemed to partially land, and it looked for a moment like Ramos is starting to get phased. He's starting to get tired. Again, he was another guy I thought would fatigue the later the fight went, just because it was something that he had done, and Bill just keeps pressuring. But I don't know what happened in the second round. Bill he put it all out. I thought he won the second round. Mind you, two of the judges disagree. But at the end of the second round, Bill just like stops and he kind of stands there for a second. It's like, oh shit, Bill's tired too. And this is a grueling pace. He's thrown a ton of shots. There's been a lot of wrestling. I've got this 1-1. Bill won that round. Going into the third, Bill's cardio has traditionally been better. And I thought Ramos did win. I know I had some people message me, oh, we got screwed on a decision. Oh, it would have been nice if Bill won. Bill lost. Bill lost the first round. I thought he won the second round, but it didn't matter what I thought. He lost the third round. And then the judges ended up having 2 30-27s regardless. So if Bill would have kicked his ass in that third round, I would have lost a split. I would have been fucking livid. But it was the right man won. Ricardo Ramos did win. With Bill Algeo, it was tough going forward because, again, he's somebody I like to bet because he's got good cardio and he's got good pace. And submission defense checked out really nice. That first round, that rear naked choke, like it's all the way in. Bill, no problem, stays calm, peels the hands off. When he does get taken down, he gets back up. But it's only a 15-minute fight. Getting taken down does not look good in the judge's opinion. You're always going to lose points there. You're always going to lose rounds there. And as far as the striking goes, like if you hit a guy 3 times with your little scarecrow arms, it doesn't do anything, and he just lands back that one good shot. It looks better for the judges. So I just think ultimately the conclusion is that Bill is limited, similar to who I like to compare to a lot of Billy Carantillo, is that he's got pace, he's got output, he's got a ground game, he's got some striking, he's got all of the assets, but he's not physically strong enough. They both beat Spike Carlisle, who's very physically strong, but too one-dimensional. Now that they're running into well-rounded guys that got the skills. And so enough about Bill, just to tie off with Ramos, solid performance, because I think coming off that last loss to Lerone Murphy, knockout, his ring IQ looked pretty poor in that fight. Prior fights to that, his cardio looked a little bit off. He didn't look the physically strongest, but you can tell he's putting a lot of work. I believe he's at American Top Team, and he's reaping the benefits. He looked cool. He looked composed. That third round where he knew, in my opinion, didn't need to in hindsight, but in that third round where it was anybody's man's fight, you got to step up. He did. He caught a second wind. His cardio looked the best it's ever has. Striking looked tight, technical. Again, not a ton of volume, which is something that's out of him, but his wrestling looked good. His ring IQ looked good. He mixed it up when he needed to. He did what he had to. Even when he gets nailed with spinning back elbow, he smiled, he fist bumped, he got back at it. So solid win for Ramos. Again, I think he's limited. I don't think he's going to break into the top 10, but he's going to have some fun fights, and depending on how they match him up, he's going to win some fights as well. And the rest of the card's kind of a blur at this point. Because I lose Bill Algeo, and it's like I'm now, for me, my investment wise, it goes to Rob Font. Like I need Rob Font to win. So we got Dumont versus Spencer. My pick was Spencer, but again, as far as an investment go, I had the fight go as a distance for whatever it's worth, but it wasn't a great price. And I felt Spencer won. Dumont got the decision. A lot of people were upset online, but I didn't care because it was a close fight. You could have scored it for either girl. And it wasn't a robbery to me, right? It would have been a robbery to me if Algeo would have won and had a bunch of tickets that still had some Spencer on it. But those tickets were gone out of the way. The first round, Spencer moves forward. She's her biggest worst enemy here, right? She's not much of a striker, okay? She could strike a little bit, but it's all about using her wrestling to get the fight to the ground where she would have a sizable advantage. In the first round, she just opts not to do that. In the second round, she's not pressing the fight to get to the area where she's most comfortable, and that's to the ground. And is Norma Dumont a BJJ black belt? Yeah, sure, but Felicia Spencer's better. And Felicia Spencer's got that caboose on her where it's not – they both did. Well, let's be real. They both have the caboose. But, yeah, just get on top of her. You're not going to go anywhere. You got heavy hips. She would have had the grappling advantage. Instead, she decided to strike. Norma Dumont had the better hands, the quicker combinations. She had landed her. Personally, I had, at the very least 1-1 going into the third. Spencer won the third. I don't know. Again, I feel for you if you're at home, you feel you got robbed, but it's not a robbery. It's a decision you disagree with. A robbery is that you won all 3 rounds. You easily won. This is only a blind man would see it the other way. This was a close fight. You go and you check online. A lot of people had Dumont up the first 2 rounds because Spencer didn't do anything in the first, right? The second round, she had a better second round, but again, that's the thing with the close fight. You can make an argument in the first round that Spencer or Dumont won. You can make an argument in the second round that Spencer or Dumont won. The third round, again, it's close. I had the feeling that Spencer won the fight overall, but she just didn't do enough. And now she's in a huge state of limbo. And they both are, right? Like, what do you do? Norma Dumont didn't look good enough to get a title shot against Amanda Nunes, and there's nobody else in the division. No one's fighting Zara Faird, I don't think. Oh, and by the way, obviously Spencer's not. She just blew right through her. Megan Anderson is no longer with the promotion. I mean, at best, the UFC should just drop them, let them go to Bellator, and let them, pursue the career over there where they can at least fight, different fighters. I'm sure PFL would sign them to come get and beat up by Kayla Harrison, but there's opportunity at least. Here, there's just no opportunity. If you would have gone out and had a huge, masterful performance, then maybe they could market you into something. They could talk you into something, but this was kind of dull both sides. Dumont's pretty, I'll give you that. You could market her, but you gotta have the goods as well. You gotta fight the fight, and so this wasn't a great look. She can't make 135. She looked huge in this fight, by the way. I don't even know how she even attempted to make 135, but that's off the table. You're stuck at 145, and if you're stuck at 145, I just don't know where the career opportunities are for you there. So she got the job done. Moving on, Jared Vanderaa versus Justin Tafa. I was this close to switching to Justin Vanderaa, and Jared Vanderaa. And I should have, but what a slopper of a fight. I'm glad I hit the over 1.5 anyways. That was kind of like where the main thought process here was. But Vanderaa has a good chin, man. This guy can take a punch. He had never been knocked down in his pro career. And then the Speedback fight, he got TKO'd. So it's the first time he's been TKO'd in his career. So there's that perception that he got knocked out. There's that perception of maybe his chin's not as good as we thought. But it was all from the ground, right? He got taken out 5 times by Speedback, got smothered, got controlled, had nowhere to go, and got, quite frankly, just mauled on and beat up. As far as fight standing goes, you hit this guy in the chin. I mean, Paul Shaughnessy calls him that ogre from the Goonies, and pretty accurate, man. This guy is a big, he looks like a big country farm boy. His back was like a movie screen, out of the theater, man. He's huge. His traps, huge. He looked in really good physical shape coming in. I mean, just looked like he had taken the camp seriously. Probably realized his back's up against the wall. Needs victory here. And I mean, I thought he showed it. It was a slow, lumbering. I wouldn't even say slow. One fight of the night. It was a fun fight. I just don't know. Neither guy has a huge ceiling here. It was definitely a fun fight. It was definitely a fight for the fans. And, if you live in a state or a province where the bars are open, watch it at the bar and whoa. And then some guy there, drunk guy says, well, I could do that. And it's like, man, maybe I guess, right? After what I just saw. But yeah, that's all it was a fun fight. Good for Jared Vanderaa. I think with Tafa now, we definitely realized he came in as supposed to be some great striker, right? His brother's a glory champion. He was training with Tai Tuivasa. He was training with Mark Khan. He was training with that whole cast of guys over there in Australia and New Zealand, and he just figured to be a good striker. UFC brought him in. They gave him 2 pay-per-view main card opportunities right off the hop. He went 1-1, looked okay, looked like he was making some improvements. But, I mean, ultimately, he can't wrestle. His grappling is just not there. He's very one-dimensional, but he doesn't really have the setup. He really doesn't have the ring awareness. He really doesn't have the control. Vanderaa had the advantage in this fight almost everywhere. And Vanderaa's biggest thing is he's a BJJ black belt and he has huge ground and pound. So the best thing Vanderaa could have done was get this fight to the ground, end up on top. Then he would have killed him. He didn't even have to do that. Just backed him up, landed the more impactful shots. I wouldn't say more impactful. Tafa did land some good shots. Out of that southpaw stance, he moved. He'd land that straight left. He did some decent amount of damage with it. Clearly busted up Vanderaa in one of those short exchanges. Blood everywhere. That's what made this a fun fight. There was a lot of blood. There was a lot of tests of wills. Both guys were going back and forth. It was competitive, but Vanderaa was fighting to the less of his abilities and winning, and Tafa was fighting to the best of his abilities and losing. Tafa, in a world best case scenario, this fight would just stay standing the entire time and he could just strike at range, and that would be the path here. Vanderaa's best case scenario, get the fight to the ground. It played in Justin Tafa's best case scenario, and Vanderaa still backed him up. Comes to decision. I mean, again, close fight, but just no doubt about it, Jared Vanderaa outworked him, won this fight, did win the fight. Fun, heavyweights, it's a weird division, right? At the top, it's an old division, right? A lot of the guys are older, but at the top, you got some legitimate talent. At the bottom ranks, you got a lot of guys that are middling around and just looking for position. But Vanderaa moves forward. I don't know what they do with him. I don't know if they give him some more fun-ish fights as he fight a Carlos Felipe. A fight like that could theoretically be pretty fun. Or do they just feed him to a Daukaus? Do they feed him to a Tom Aspinall? I don't know what they're looking to do and who they're looking to progress. But good word for Jared Vanderaa. And I wish he stuck with his whole gimmick of I look like the guy from the Goonies. But regardless, props to him. Got a solid little victory. Carla Esparza, probably the biggest winner of the entire card. As good of a performance as she ever has. Her last time that she's finished an opponent was Rose Namajunas. So cool narrative here that's I am a former champion. I defeated Rose Namajunas for that title. She ended up getting, I'm going to say fast track. They both had to go through the ringer, but Rose gets back to that title opportunity, and Carla has taken the ground. Carla has fought in everybody. Carla has fought in ranked contenders, non-ranked contenders. She's fought in every name in the alphabet to get back to a title shot. And she's not talked about it in the talks, because the talks are always, okay, we got Rose is at the top now. Weili Zhang should get that opportunity. She's the number 2 girl. Jessica Andrade, she's got a win over Rose. And, she's that number 3 girl. And Joanna Jacek, my God, former champion as well, just like so unbelievably talented. She's got that 4 spot. And Tatiana Suarez, oh my God, the wrestling on her. At least she's very interesting. She killed Carla Esparza. She's got that number 5 spot. So Carla's like sitting 6, realistically sitting 6 on the outside looking in all the time. And she'll defeat everybody that's below that 6th spot twice over. But she's lost decisively to Tatiana. She's lost decisively to Joanna Jacek. And, she just doesn't figure to get these fights with the higher echelon. But this is a spot that if I go out there, the way the division's shaking right now, a big win could insert me in those title talks. I need to go out there and have a big win. Now, the wrestling advantage was going to be there for Carla Esparza. Carla Esparza, the interesting note was 12 fights in the UFC and had taken down 11 opponents. She's taken down every single opponent she's ever fought in the UFC, for the exception of Tatiana Suarez. So, she was going to get this fight to the ground at some point. It was just whether Jan was going to be able to get back to her feet, tie her down a little bit, and then, like the Michelle Waterson fight, get taken down in the first round, second round, stuff them, start striking a little bit. Carla ended up winning that Waterson fight by virtue of using her striking and just kind of making it a close fight, winning a split. But, who knows what side it goes to. The line opens as plus 175 Esparza. The public, very sharp on that one. Bank it all the way down to even money. So now there's no plus money to have on Esparza, but you knew it was going to be close. You knew she's going to have the grappling advantage. This was not close. If you got Esparza at plus 175, Christmas came early. Christmas came in June because it's not even June yet, is it? Christmas came in May. It was just like a walk in the park for her. The takedown came exceptionally easy in the first round, and then Jan couldn't do nothing with it. She couldn't move. She couldn't posture. She couldn't regard. She literally just got hammered on. Probably 10-8 first round for Carla Esparza. And watching this unfold, mind you, I got a fight goes the distance ticket. Actually, I had a Esparza by decision and a Yan by decision. So I lost $200, put $100 on my side, whatever. But it was like the time, a couple months ago when I had the Tisha Torres by decision over Sam Hughes. It's like, this shouldn't be happening, but it is. Just cuts through her like a hot knife through butter. Carla Esparza, if Tatiana decides to move to 125, because, that's the talk. She's injured her neck. The weight cut's a little tough for her. She is a big physical girl. She's also wrestled her whole life, so a number of weight cuts, it's going to start to wreak havoc on the body. Most wrestlers eventually do move up a class. If that's the case, then, Carla Esparza is the best wrestler in the division, and wrestling wins fights, and so she's very interesting. And now you can talk her into a fight with Rose because she's beaten Rose, and she's got the wrestling, and I think Rose beats it, don't get me wrong. But, for Carla, all the work you've had to do to get back to this title shot, and finally, it's there for you. So I know if you've been following the show for a long time, with me and Carla had an issue in 2012. And she commented on the show one time and be like, fuck you. But anyways, that hatchet's been buried 3, 4, 5 years ago now. And Carla she's a fighter's fighter. She'll take any fight. She shows up. She doesn't talk shit. She walks in there and she does the damn thing. She'll try to wrestle your head off, but if she can't, she'll stand with you. She'll do whatever she needs to do. She does not quit. She's busted up. She comes forward. She doesn't complain afterwards. She's like a quintessential fighter's fighter, blue collar. All the respect in the world. This was a career best outing. So for her sake, I do hope they give her the title shot. She's my opinion, earned it. And then moving on, we got Rob Font and Cody Garbrandt. Cap the night off again. So we hit our top ticket. We're looking to hit the second bracket ticket. We need Rob Font, preferably a Rob Font by KO. But again, it does not matter. We need a Rob Font victory first and foremost. And he looked good. I don't know what you would call it. Would you call it Rob Font looked really good, or that Cody Garbrandt did not look himself? Because there's a little bit of a tale of two things. Starting with Rob Font, though, ever since he's come back from the reconstructive knee surgery, even if you look at his last 3 or 4 fights in general, the jabs there, the lengths there, huge narrative coming into this one was that he had a 6-inch reach advantage over Cody Garbrandt. So he needed to just stay at distance, stay at bay, use the jab, pick him apart. The leg kicks would be effective. They'd be there for you. He'd never been to these 5-round spots, but again, I had the Font by knockout. I didn't think this thing's going 5 rounds, truth be told. And a couple people made a joke. They were like, well, no, man, Cody Garbrandt grew a beard. Like, it should help him. And it's like, Ha ha, totally did, man. My God. Beard, by the way, was looking on point. Not sure what kind of oil he uses in there. But beyond that, it's like Font slammed him, man. Font slammed him with a number of shots. A couple of them flat out stung him. Font would do a pretty good job of not pressing it overly when he would have him hurt, but also Cody Garbrandt did a good job of when he got hurt, he'd get ready to counter. He'd bite down on his gum shield. But he looked a step back in every facet, really. I mean, he decided to see. I talked about the fact that Font gets taken down a lot, but that Cody Garbrandt doesn't really use his offensive wrestling. And what we've seen from Font is that he gets taken down a lot. So the Ricky Simone fight's like, go ahead, take me down. I am going to get back up. His get up game looked awesome. His subsequent fight is Marlon Moraes. Marlon Moraes takes him down twice in the first round. Font's get up game looks awesome. So I thought Cody's not going to wrestle, but even if he did, Font's going to get back up. That ended up proving true, is that Cody did decide to use his wrestling, and his wrestling looked pretty good. But whenever he'd get this fight to the ground, nothing came of it. Font was easily able to get back up, and then standing. It's like Garbrandt's known for big power at 135, but it just didn't translate there. Font's never been knocked out. Font's never been knocked down. He has a really good chin. Dude went 15 minutes with John Lineker. Dude's been in there with some heavy hitters. He has a solid chin. And when Cody doesn't yield that knockout, it became too predictable. But I really think that Cody Garbrandt at his best is a confidence-based fighter, right? Because I know we talked about this at length. When he's the champion, he comes up as a douchebag. Oh, TJ Dillashaw knocked him out in training. Oh, I don't chase pussy and I don't chase Dominic Cruz. It's just like, okay, buddy, whatever. But he's full of himself, right? He's feeling good. He fights Dominic Cruz. He's dancing. He's brushing the dirt off his shoulders. And he kicks his ass. You know, he probably 50-45 Dominic Cruz, 5 rounds to nothing, like career best performance. And then his head got big. And then once his head got big, it's like the return to reality hasn't been great for him. It's not that he doesn't have the skills. It's that a lot of the times you achieve something and it's such a huge achievement. I just beat Dominic Cruz, who's in talk for being one of the GOATs. He's the best 35er of all time. He's had the title for a long time. He's the man. I just defeated this guy. I'm the man. Nobody can touch me. But it's like, this is a sport where there's always another guy and it's always another style clash. And Garbrandt's chin was supposed to be the issue, right? Because TJ Dillashaw, first fight, Garbrandt drops Dillashaw. And Dillashaw recovers and he ends up knocking out Garbrandt. But hey, man, Garbrandt looked good. Did you know the rematch? TJ Dillashaw's like a -140 favorite in the rematch. Just knocked him out. Just proved to be a much better fighter. Took his best shot, recovered, and knocked him out. And is a -140 favorite as the champion in the rematch. Like, that's how much people love Garbrandt. He gets knocked out again. They give him Pedro Munoz. Huge favorite again. You know, favorite over Pedro Munoz. And he gets knocked out again. So the chin was supposed to be the issue. But this fight with Rob Font, chin wasn't the issue. It was the striking skills. The 6-inch reach advantage, it was huge. Yeah, he couldn't overcome it. He got eaten up by that jab all day long. Whenever he tried to mix it up and get in there, he was taking 2 shots for every one he could deliver. He was just coming up short. The shots that he did land, they just didn't affect Rob Font. The wrestling, all it was doing was tiring him out. Font would get back up, and there was just like an increasingly desperate look on his face. He's dropping rounds. You could make an argument that he won the first round because it was close, and that would have been the best time to live bet Rob Font, I suppose, after the first. But I thought Font won 2, 3, 4, and 5. Again, apparently there's an argument that you can make for Cody Garbrandt having won the 5th. And one judge actually did make the argument that Cody Garbrandt had, I guess, won the 1st and the 5th because he had it at 48-47, having it 3-2 for Rob Font. And whereas that sounds crazy, like I thought Font won all 5 rounds. I thought he won a 50-45 clean across the board. It's like, imagine a world where it came down to the 5th round, or imagine a world where this is Rob Font only barely beat Cody Garbrandt. Like, no, it was a coming out party for him. He looked great. Knocking out Marlon Moraes, that's awesome. But people are going to say Moraes is shot and this and that. And had he knocked out Cody Garbrandt, it would have been awesome. But people would have said, Cody Garbrandt shot. He skill for skill kicked his ass in every department of the game. So I think Font's 33 now. And again, he's going to have to get pushed along. He's going to have to get into a very good, meaningful fight. And lucky for him, or maybe unlucky for him, bantamweight is just loaded. All the best guys in the world fight at 135 pounds. And so there's no shortness of guys he could fight. He could fight a Pedro Munoz. He could fight a Corey Sandhagen. He could fight, there's just so many good contenders at 135. If Aljamain's sitting on the sidelines and Jan's going to wait for him, I mean, the rest of the division's kind of in limbo, and there's no shortness of names. Literally, just breaking into the top 10 in itself is something big. But at 33 years old, you don't want to be fighting 3 or 4 of these top 10 guys before that title shot opens up. You got to beat a guy and jump right into the opportunity. He's got the skills. Everything's lining up for him. Is that, he's going to have to further us along. And with Garbrandt, I mean, he'll be back. It wasn't like he got knocked out where then we start making an argument that's like, oh, he's taking too much damage. It's that he's not the guy that a lot of people thought he was, right? When he defeated Cruz, you think it's a passing of the torch. Cruz is a torchbearer. He's a guy that did it. He'd done it all. And when he loses to Dominic, it's like, all right, you're the man now. But like to me, or when you beat Dominic, he got that momentum swing. I mean, he was the man, but it looks like he has top 5, top 10 skills. He's got really fast hands. He does have some power. His cardio, I mean, he did go 25 minutes on Saturday, so it's not bad. Like, he does have all those skills, but it look again, bantamweight is just so unbelievably tough. Even guys like Merab Dvalishvili, just waiting in their wings, can give everybody tough night and just don't get the respect that they're owed, right? So yeah, I mean, to be honest, Cody Garbrandt rematch versus Dominic Cruz would be great. Being before, Cruz has got a win over Casey Keeney coming forward. He's got a little momentum. It's big. Both guys are big names, but are clearly the back nine of their career. So why not put that fight together? But beyond that, he'd be fighting Casey Keeney. He's going to be fighting that level. Like that's where he seems to be at. Could he beat Casey Keeney? Yeah. Could Casey Keeney chew up Cody Garbrandt's leg and out hustle him out for a close decision? I honestly see a world where that exists as well. So it does seem like a fall from grace for Cody Garbrandt. I'm not sure what he could do. Like, I'm not one to just be like Jim Jump, but the team alpha male thing seems to have gotten a little stale for him. And, maybe greener pastures would help out, or I can't say time off. I mean, he's had time off. It's not time off. It's not let your head heal. And, it's not the skills are regressing. I don't know that what he brings to the table is anything special, anything more special than the top 5 of those division brings. Like, think about all the guys that are there. Aljamain Sterling's dynamic. He's got a good ground game. He's got pretty good cardio. He's tricky. He's unorthodox. Peter Yan is just an absolute murderer. He's a Terminator. Jimmy Rivera's got the striking. Pedro Munoz has got the grappling. Even, the Frankie Edgars of the world. They've got the back class and the wrestling. They all got those intangibles. Everyone brings something to the table. But the older you get, the more the next guy just comes and he passes you. With Sandhagen, it's like he's dynamic. He throws the knee. He's long. He's rangy. He's got good cardio. So how do you defeat Sandhagen? Well, you need the wrestling like Aljamain, or you need the wrestling like Merab Dvalishvili. It's like that's how you counter it. With Cody, it's like the wrestling, even though it worked against Font, which we knew it was going to work against Font, the wrestling's not there at the most elite level. At a UFC level, his wrestling is adequate. At a top 15 level, his wrestling is adequate. At a top 10 level, it's borderline. But beyond that, his wrestling is not taking him beyond that. His boxing not taking him beyond that. If you're going to get into a firefight with a top 5 guy, they're going to hit you harder than Font did on Saturday. And he's proven that he's not taking those shots. So it's going to be a tough climb back to the top for Cody Garbrandt. But I'm here for it. You know what I mean? I'm not writing the guy off. He's going to have some fun fights. He'll probably score a couple more knockout of the night bonuses. But I think effectively his days as a top end guy in the division are likely over. And speaking of over, the recap is over. So thanks for tuning in. UFC Vegas 27. And we got a week off next week. So I'm going to release some other videos throughout the week. We don't get no previews. We won't go no recaps, all that jazz. But got a couple cool things in play. Anyways, we did make some money, so at least we're going into a week off with a little bit of extra bankroll. However you choose to use it, that's up to you. I don't know if you bet hockey, you bet golf, you decide to just save it for the next time. That's what I'm doing. Keep the momentum going. And always, thanks for dropping in.